Hello, everybody. This is week 7, 2024 season 2. This is the Team Conti Sim Performance NASCAR NextGen Cup Car Track Guide. Going to take you for a 30-lap run around Dover and detail some things to look for over the run, some ways to make speed, some ways to make speed and conserve tires, when to go, when not to go, and just some overall things to do with mentality here. This is a big mental game, trying to keep the tires in the car and keep pace and track position. So tough balance, but hopefully can give some tips and tricks here to make it a little bit easier as we start our racing here next week. So think back to some intermediates that we've gone to in the past. Notably, a couple seasons ago, if you all are familiar, if you were racing this car at the time, we had a lot more fall off. The tires were a lot more temperature sensitive. That is how this is looking like for next week with the track conditions that we're in here. Track temp is pretty hot, so tires are definitely getting outside their operating window quickly. So because of that, you really want to back up your front end of the run times considerably. So if your hot lap, let's say, is a 23:40, you want to be starting in the 60s. So 2/10 off plus whatever your potential lap time is, and really holding that through 10, still saving to a degree through 20, but to a lesser degree, I would say, as you start to cross that 20 lap point and approach 30. The saving should have already been done. So if you didn't save to that point, your tires are gone. There's truly nothing you can do to get them back. You're just going to be along for the ride until you can get the tires off the car. So by lap 30, you should be done saving, but everything before that needs to be in the name of tire conservation. Need to be tire conscious. So you can see right here, I've started this run off in the 23.5s. And again, this is a pace that I know will work over a 30-lap run. When you get into a race, and I think A opens or 100 laps or somewhere around there, for all you know, at some point you may have to go much more than 30 laps. In a perfect world, you would split a 100-lap race in two and pit around lap 50. But let's say you get a caution on lap 20, and you've got a 77-8 lap run to the finish by the time your caution laps are done. Probably make it on fuel at that point, so you're going to have to stretch tires. Stretching tires 70 laps plus is definitely going to be a challenge, and as we saw in last year's Coke race, blowing right front or right rear is a definite possibility if you don't manage those tires. So what am I doing at the front end of the run to manage tires? It's easy to talk about doing it, but what am I doing? Well, I'm doing a couple things. So number one, backing up corner entry. Doing this so I don't burn the right front off of it. You typically set up a Dover car a little bit on the tighter side, similar to Bristol, so you can maintain good drive off and really commit to throttle center off as the run goes on and make up your time there. So to not shed the right front off of it, backing up that entry, using a bit of brake through the entry zone to just help the nose point and turn. And then in addition to that, right here, right, I could probably commit to more throttle than that, maybe even 100%, but I'm delaying that commitment just a bit so I can then save the right rear tire. So saving right front on entry, saving right rear on exit, saving right front by backing up the entry speeds, saving right rear by backing up my commitment to throttle to later in the corner. As you crest on exit, as you come over the crest off of 2 and 4, you can hear the rear tires get light, and typically you can feel the back end start to swing out. You want to avoid as much of that as possible to preserve the right rear and to keep temperature out of it. In delaying the commitment to throttle, you are doing just that. And even though we've got a really crummy gear this week and we're not turning a whole lot of RPM, it seems like the car has enough torque at that lower RPM range to still light up the tires and exit, even on the short run. So pay close attention to that. Still see here 10 laps into the run, still in the 23.5s. Again, if I was aiming to do a longer run, a 50, 60, 70 lap run, I would back this down more, but still preserving tires, but maybe not necessarily as much as I would in a race. And where it's going to get tricky, as I alluded to when we started this, is that track position is critical at Dover. Dirty air is terrible. So the last thing you want to do is save a bunch of tire at the front end of the run, but lose 10 spots in the process. Even if you've got more tires than the guys that passed you later in the run, you're going to run into trouble trying to get back around them, especially as the track rubbers in and this normal line that I'm running where you're kind of entering about a quarter car width off the bottom, sliding up in the center and then bring it back down. That's going to get really greasy, so the line's going to move to the middle, and when it does, it's going to be that much harder to make a pass, make a complete pass, because you've got less track to work with, and you're stuck in that greasy, rubbery stuff on the bottom. So have to keep track position, but also have to save tire. So welcome to iRacing in 2024. This is pretty common across the tracks that the NextGen goes to with this type of intermediate tire compound, but again, given the track temp and the high corner loads at Dover, it just seems to be a bit worse than usual this week. So let's talk about the line a little bit more. We talked about how to save tire on entry and exit, but what am I doing line-wise? So getting down to about a quarter car width off the bottom on entry as I land into the corner, as you feel the car compress, letting the car naturally slide up another half a car width in the center, as you can see right there, and then slowing down enough so I can get the thing pointed back down on exit. I don't necessarily need to get all the way back down on exit. I still want to keep a little bit of room between myself and the edge of the apron, but you want to have that diamond line where you enter on the low side, slide up in the middle, and then enter back down lower than where you were in the center. Right? Because if you don't slow down enough in the center and you try to cut it back down, you're probably just going to shove the nose a bit tight. So that's when you know if that starts to happen, just slow your center speed down a little bit more. Carry a little bit more brake through the entry phase, maybe back up that initial lift, or just wait on throttle another extra half a second to allow the speed to shave off so you can turn the nose back down the track. I'm working brake bias quite a bit through this run as well, and that's going to be a really good tool that you can use throughout your long runs. As those tires start to exit their operating window, and again, depending on how you drive it, could be as early as lap 10 and it could be as late as past lap 30. As the handling starts to evolve, you're going to want to play with that brake bias as brakes become more and more of a factor as the pace falls off and you use more brake later in the run. How is the handling going to evolve? It's going to be completely up to you. If you're somebody who charges corners hard and maybe uses a bunch of wheel on entry, maybe doesn't get down to the bottom, you're going to scrub the front, you're going to build tight. If you back up entry and you really start to get back on the throttle early before the center and use a lot of throttle on exit, spin up those rear tires, obviously you're going to build loose. There's really not one way that this thing will build this week. It's truly dependent on how you drive it. I've done a ton of 30 lap runs at this point, and even on the same setup I could be a little bit tight one run and a bit looser the next. So certainly the driver is in control this week in many ways, but one of which is in how the handling evolves throughout the longer run. So just crossed lap 20 right there. We're now in the 24-second bracket. Again, started in the 23.5, so about a half a second off of where we started this run. And we'll lose another half a second or so between 20 and 30. So you lose a half a second between 1 and 20, and then another half between 20 and 30. That fall off rate won't continue throughout the rest of the run. It'll begin to plateau and taper off. But just good to keep in the back of your mind that a lot of your fall off is going to happen from that 20 to 30 mark. And depending on how you conserve those tires, it could happen a bit sooner or later. And just really trying to be smart with how much throttle I give it. And you can see we're using a good amount of wheel in the center of the corner, a good tug, good crank. With the 236 pinion that our benchmark setup comes with this week, you can afford to use a bit more wheel. I like that around here. I like to be able to crank a bit more. Helps me preserve that right rear and the right front. This helps both right side tires. But again, that's all preference. You could be somebody who doesn't like to turn nearly as much. You could throw a 315 in this thing and be just as successful if you maximize that pinion. Heading down into 3, turning off the wall a bit before I actually start to come off the throttle. The approach is a bit different at both ends. 1 and 2 is a bit more of a straightforward approach where pretty much as soon as you lift, you're coming off the wall. 3 and 4 is a longer entry zone, more of a sweeping entry, so you can turn off the wall while you're still on the throttle and then lift. And right there you can see there's a second or so where I'm already coming off the wall, but I'm still wide open as I cross under the Ally Bridge into 3. About 5 laps left in this run or so. And again, you'll see nothing major is changing the way I'm attacking. Just everything happens a bit slower or a bit earlier. A little bit earlier lift, a little bit more brake, not necessarily more wheel because at this point our grip's falling away, so if I turn more, I'm probably just going to scrub the tire. I'm not actually going to get any grip out of it. But definitely braking a little bit more, lifting a little bit earlier, and then just really delaying that commitment to throttle on exit as the right rear is basically at its hottest at this point, and rear grip is fading away for me. As your races, as you go through your races rather, the dynamic track system, like I said, is going to make this bottom pretty greasy. So in your practice sessions, familiarize yourself with the middle groove and how to attack that. Go all the way up to the top, maybe to the edge of where the rubber is. You can kind of see where it gets lighter toward the top. Just put your left sides right at that edge and figure out techniques that help maximize exit speed. And then also, I think right along the very bottom, you can see a very thin strip of light asphalt where the rubber isn't pre-laid down by the sim. Typically, as the rest of the track gets rubbered in and greased up, because most people aren't disciplined enough to keep their left sides in that very, very bottom. That'll become really advantageous at some point of the race as well. And coming to take the last lap here, racing the wall a couple times for good measure. 15 years into racing and iRacing, and I still don't know where the right side of the car is. So if you're somebody who hits the wall unprovoked, don't worry about it. I do the same thing. Jokes aside, coming through 3 and 4 to complete the 30-lap run at Dover here, you can see I try to get everything I can out of it, and we finish the run at a 24.624, which is just about 1.1 seconds off where I started the run at. And we'll end it there. So Dover is a really tricky track, but a very rewarding track too. When you execute behind the wheel and you maximize the potential of the setup. TCSP and in our EPI days, we've historically been strong here. So I think we've got another really good setup for you all this week, and hoping to see more success across the board from our customer group and our ambassadors alike. So as always, want to thank you all for watching this video and taking the time to improve your sim racing skills. We appreciate everything that you do for us, and we hope that you continue to see the value in racing with TCSP. And however we can help, we are here to do so. Thank you all again. Good luck in week 7, and we'll see you next time.